In the mid-1800s, the world was going batshit for bird shit. Both bat and bird crap can be called guano, but the guano in this story will mostly refer to bird turds. And it turns out that guano is some of the best fertilizer there is. It's super rich in nitrogen, phosphate, and potassium, the most essential of nutrients for plant growth. Like guano is over 10% nitrogen, while cow manure is only around 3%. And the Andean people of South America had been using bird guano as fertilizer for over 1,500 years. In fact, the word guano is a Quechua word which was the primary language of the Incan Empire. The Pacific Ocean around South America is weirdly good at producing and storing large amounts of bird turds. The Humboldt Current of cold water coming up the South Pacific Gyre meets the warm waters of the North Pacific Gyre. That makes a good environment for seabirds like the Guano cormorant to find hella anchovies and other fish to eat. And the cold Humboldt Current leaves the land dry and largely rain-free. So for maybe thousands of years, birds would crap on stacks of craps on stacks of craps, making a shit stack the likes of which only Reggie Watts could conceive. Some of the island's crap stacks were over 200 feet deep, which is like 15 stories of what would soon be called white gold. But the Western world's white people weren't really keyed into the green bum effects of bird droppings until 1802. That's when Prussian explorer Alexander von Humboldt encountered indigenous people using it in Peru, and he studied it. And his quote-unquote discovery of guano couldn't have come at a better time for Americans or Europeans because the Industrial Revolution was transforming society. In less than 100 years, we had went from an agricultural society where most people were living and working on farms to an industrial society where most people were living in cities and working in factories and stuff. So fewer farmers were growing more and more food for more and more people and had to abandon soil-saving techniques like crop rotation. And with less nutrients in the soil, fields were becoming less and less productive. Before long, Humboldt's discovery of the indigenous practice of guano fertilization led to a guano mania. People were rushing to the Pacific to try to get their grubby fingers even more grubbier with bird butt dust. Oligopolies were forming and price fixing was rampant. Working conditions were horrible and abusive for laborers, who were largely coerced local laborers or imported Chinese laborers. By the 1850s, the UK was importing over 200,000 tons of bird shit a year, and the United States was importing over 760,000 tons. Demand was so high that the United States tweaked how we did imperialism forever when it passed the Guano Islands Act of 1856. It said that any American citizen could go out there into the world and claim any island as long as it had bird crap on it and that it wasn't possessed by any other government. And if they did find one, the president could say that the new Guano Island appertains to the United States. The crazy thing is that the Guano Islands Act is still on the books, and these 8 islands still appertain to the United States because of it. They include Midway Atoll, which was super important strategically during World War II, and also Howland Island. That's where Amelia Earhart and her navigator were supposed to land. But by the turn of the 1900s, a lot of guano islands and other sources of guano had been largely depleted. Then in 1913, Fritz Haber and Karl Bosch came up with the Haber-Bosch process, which makes ammonia from hydrogen and nitrogen. And that's how most modern fertilizers are made. Nowadays, farmers and companies only really put bird droppings on their crops as an organic fertilizer.